The amber wind warning for parts of Scotland. We see a very brief ridge of high pressure before it arrives, but then pushing in across the northwest of the country, bringing those really exceptionally strong winds, potentially unseasonably strong too. Before we get there though, any rain that we've seen through Sunday afternoon clears away towards the southeast, with clear spells developing for much of England, Wales and Scotland, but all eyes out towards the northwest as Storm Floris arrives, bringing some really quite heavy rainfall across parts of Northern Ireland and western Scotland. And quite a mild night to come for most of us, potentially even quite humid too, temperatures holding up into the mid-teens for most of us. But it's a very wet and windy start to the day on Monday across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and northern parts of England too. Some very strong gusts here. We could see gusts inland of 50 to 60 miles an hour, potentially 70 miles an hour at the coast through the first part of Monday. It'll be staying a little bit drier, albeit still rather windy across much of England. Perhaps some early morning sunshine across the very far southeast, but still quite a mild start to the day. Those winds across the very far north of the country continue to increase in strength. We could see gusts up to potentially 85 miles per hour, maybe even slightly more across western parts of Scotland, the north coast of Aberdeenshire, hence that amber wind warning been issued this morning. Outbreaks of rain continue to sweep south and eastwards, and it'll be feeling a little bit cooler across the whole of the country on Monday, despite temperatures being pretty similar temperature value-wise, up to 24 degrees in the south. With those strong winds, particularly in the north, it'll be feeling that little bit cooler. Those strong winds then continue into Monday evening across the northern half of the country, although perhaps a little easing down further south. It's then going to be turning a little drier into Tuesday and Wednesday with plenty of sunshine on offer, and maybe even turning a little bit warmer later in the week.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB.
Let us take on some of your financial stresses and pay your mortgage or rent for the next 12 months. We want to give you a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an unbelievable £20,000. We'll also boost that by a further £5,000, so you really could have some fun in the coming year. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, very good evening to you. At 6 o'clock here in the GB newsroom, I'm Aaron Armstrong. Plans to introduce a new fast-track scheme to tackle the asylum claims backlog have been unveiled with the aim of making decisions within weeks. It comes as yet another protest has taken place outside the Britannia International Hotel in Canary Wharf, which received around 60 migrants on Friday, the central London hotel. It's the latest in a series of demonstrations as tensions over asylum hotels have flared in recent weeks. On Saturday, police made 9 arrests after rival groups gathered outside the Thistle City Barbican Hotel in Islington in North London. Hundreds of people separately marched in Manchester as part of a protest organised by Britain First, a far-right group. Shadow Defence Minister Mark Francois says the government is simply tinkering around the edges.
They said they would smash the gangs. They palpably haven't. That this ridiculous scheme of 17 in, 1 out that was announced a few weeks ago is a total gimmick. Labour have no plan whatsoever to stop the boats, and that's a tragedy because the boats will keep coming. We'll need more asylum hotels, and there'll be more and more social unrest as a result.
Anyone who advertises small boat crossings or fake passports on social media could face up to 5 years in prison. The government says the aim is to stop brazen tactics being used by smuggling gangs on social media. Around 80% of migrants reaching the UK have told officials they use social media to facilitate the journey. The National Crime Agency says 8,000 posts promoting immigration crime were taken offline last year. Thousands of drivers who were missold car loans could receive payouts in a £1 billion compensation scheme. The financial regulator says many firms were not complying with the law or disclosure rules when they sold loans to consumers. However, victims of car finance mis-selling will get less than £950 per deal, with the total cost of the scheme estimated to be between £9 and £18 billion. It comes after a separate but similar case on Friday when the Supreme Court ruled hidden commissions from lenders to dealers on car loans were not unlawful, meaning millions of motorists will not be able to claim on those. An aid group in Gaza has accused Israeli forces of targeting its headquarters, killing one of its workers and injuring 3 others. The Palestine Red Crescent Society says the building in the southern city of Han Yunis was clearly marked and known to the military. Israel has denied any knowledge of the attack. Meanwhile, the government here says plans to bring seriously ill or injured children from Gaza to the UK for urgent medical treatment are being carried out at pace. The Sunday Times has reported that up to 300 children could be evacuated within the coming weeks. And Russia says a Ukrainian drone attack is responsible for a huge fire burning at an oil depot near the Black Sea resort of Sochi. Huge pillars of smoke have been seen pouring out of the facility, causing flights at Sochi airport to be temporarily halted. Ukraine's military says it also struck a nearby military airfield. Meanwhile, at least 7 people have been injured and dozens of homes destroyed after a Russian missile hit the Ukrainian southern city of Mykolaiv. Those are your latest headlines. I'll be back with more a little later.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good morning and welcome to the Camilla Tominey Show with me, Tom Harwood. This week, putting the Tom in Tominey. Now, Parliament may be in recess, but politics hasn't paused. Here's what's coming up on today's programme. The Labour MP for Hales-Owen, Alex Ballinger, joins me discussing the escalating tensions surrounding asylum seekers being housed in hotels. We'll also get his response to the rush of migrants who have arrived on small boats to the UK, the number that has for the first time topped 25,000 by August. Could it be a record year? Well, from the opposition benches, I'll speak to the Shadow Defence Minister, Mark Francois. I'll get his reaction to President Trump's decision to deploy 2 nuclear submarines following a row with the former Russian President, Dmitry Medvedev. We'll also hear from Israel's Deputy Foreign Minister, Sharon Haskell, as Western countries, including the United Kingdom, move towards recognising a Palestinian state. Is Israel becoming increasingly isolated on the global stage? And we'll get expert analysis from Dr. Richard Johnson, Professor of US Politics at Queen Mary University of London, on Trump's recent trip to Scotland and what to expect from September's full state visit. Very good morning to you. This is the Camilla Tominey Show with me, Tom Harwood. Now, joining me is the Labour MP, Alex Ballinger, Labour MP for Hales-Owen. Alex, thanks so much for being with us in the studio. The government has big announcements this weekend, trying to crack down on illegal migration. But is going after people smugglers who advertise on TikTok really going to solve this problem?
Good morning, Tom, and thank you for having me. I think it's a really important part of tackling the overall illegal migration problem. So we've done a study of those migrants that are coming to the UK. 80% of them tell us that they've used social media to facilitate some part of that journey. So we do know it's a really important part of the people smugglers model. So our announcement, tacked on to the Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill, will allow the police to go after people that are using social media to advertise smuggling routes, and some of those videos on TikTok that you were talking about, go after people that promote illegal documentation, or to go after anyone who promotes illegal working opportunities. So tackling many of the models that the smuggling gangs are using that we expect will make a real difference on reducing illegal migration.
Why is this needed when it's already illegal to aid and abet the illegal people trafficking of people?
It is illegal, and we're using all the powers that we can, but this extra detail, the extra clarification will give the police the ability to go after people that are using social media. There's a lot of, I think, reluctance sometimes to go after people online. There's often, when I talk to my constituents, they complain that the police focuses online too much rather than focuses on crimes that are happening there and then in the constituency. So by putting this into law specifically, it will give the police that extra confidence to go after those people smugglers that we really want them to.
Is there a difficulty here? The government continually speaks about people smugglers as if the people coming across the channel have no agency themselves, as if they're sort of helpless in the process, that they're being trafficked by nefarious gangs, and if it only weren't for the gangs, these people wouldn't come across at all. When we know the reality is these people want to come across, they're going to find a way to come across, and as soon as you crack down on one gang, maybe you arrest the ringleader of one gang, there'll be another that comes along, because after all, it's the market demand, it's the demand from the people in those camps in Calais who want to come across. They're going to find a way. If they can get on a boat, they're going to find a way across.
It is really important to go after the gangs because they're facilitating the trade, and without the gangs there would be no one able to cross into the UK.
But the frustrating thing here is that these boats don't physically reach the beach in the UK. They haven't for the last couple of years. They make it halfway across the channel to that halfway point as soon as they're in UK waters. They're then escorted by Border Force vessels. People are picked up at sea, put on Border Force vessels, and they arrive at various docking points on the coastline. This isn't a problem of sort of tackling the legality of the problem is that we're dumping them in the United Kingdom rather than taking them back to France.
So as I said, it's important to tackle the gangs. We're also going after the incentives for people that are wanting to come to the UK for all those reasons that you just talked about, Tom. So part of the Border Security Bill includes measures against illegal working practices, tougher penalties for employers, tougher penalties for people advertising, and on top of this extra work that we're doing on social media, we're going to get rid of some of the advertising that encourages people to make those journeys. You also talked about foreign cooperation, and that is really important. So you will have heard about the deal we made with France a couple of weeks ago.
Which is still not implemented yet and still needs European exception.
It will be started to implement soon, and this will be the first time. I don't have a particular date. They're going through those negotiations to get it done as soon as possible. But as soon as we have that deal, we'll be having migrants being returned to France for the first time. That breaks the people smugglers model. That breaks the model of people that want to come here. If they have an opportunity when they arrive to be sent straight back to France, it's going to make them much less likely to want to pay that £12,000 to come to the UK.
It certainly does, if you're returning most people. But on the latest numbers, you'd be returning just 5% of people. If someone's going to have a 95% chance of making it to the United Kingdom, they're still going to make that journey.
It's a pilot scheme, Tom. So we're going to start off small. If we can prove the concept, if it works for France, if it works for the UK, which we all expect it will, those numbers will increase. And the more that they increase, the more that deterrent will work. And frankly, it's a better deterrent than what the last government was offering in Rwanda, when only 4 people were returned after all those months and months.
Well, they would say that the scheme never got going and that those people were voluntary returns rather than the actual legal scheme starting.
They were voluntary returns. They couldn't even enforce any returns in the many months.
Yes, the scheme never got going. The issue here is that arrivals are 50% higher than last year. This is looking like it's going to be the highest number of illegal migrants across the Channel on record, or perhaps since 1066. I mean, given that record, why should we believe what the government is saying now?
It is a disappointing number. We, of course, want to bring it down. But a lot of the measures that we're bringing into place are just starting to come into play now. That cooperation with France is being negotiated. That will happen soon. The border security bill, that will be made into law after the recess in the autumn. That will give those extra powers to police, those counter-terror powers that we were talking about to go after the smuggling gangs. They're cracking down on advertising. And then we've also got new agreements with Germany to go after the smuggling gangs, managing the logistics and the supply chain. And you might have heard that some of the work that the National Crime Agency is doing across the continent is now seizing more boats. So we seized 25 boats on the border between Bulgaria and Turkey only a few days ago. So a lot of this stuff is happening now or shortly, and that is when we'll
be able to see with those numbers if we do continue to see this surge, because as I say, it is currently the worst year that we have seen on record. I do want to move on though, because the Online Safety Act came into force just over a week ago. The elements of it that make that implement restrictions online for people under the age of 18 and for people over the age of 18, much content, some of it explicit, some of it not so explicit, including parliamentary speeches are now age restricted. Interestingly, over the weekend, we learn that a number of your colleagues have taken out VPNs, virtual private networks, on expenses before the Act came into force. But this has been criticised by the Technology Secretary, Peter Kyle, saying people are trying to get around the Act. The Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, put on expenses a virtual private network for 2 years, a subscription to this service. Why would he do that, spoofing his location to be in a different country, potentially getting around restrictions in this country?
So the Business Secretary has to make lots of trips to different places, including countries like China or other locations. And it's really important, if your data is not to be tracked by our adversaries, that we have the options to use VPNs when necessary. I don't know exactly why Jonathan might be using it, but that was the sort of circumstance that I've used it in the past when I've been on official trips.
So given that the Technology Secretary criticises people for using VPNs, but some of his colleagues use VPNs, what is the government's position on whether people should be able to use them?
I think this Act is about child protection. So the Online Safety Bill is about preventing children accessing extreme pornography.
But we have an unclear position on whether people should use virtual private networks or not.
I think we should be discouraging children from using virtual private networks.
OK.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, just like week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock and welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show on GB News with me, Tom Harwood, putting the Tom in Tominey. Now, lots more still to come on the programme. Indeed, we'll hear from the Shadow Defence Minister, Mark Francois, with his view on the growing international tensions sparked by Donald Trump's deployment of 2 nuclear submarines amid rising tensions with Russia. Elsewhere, Israel's Deputy Foreign Minister Sharon Haskell will also join me as pressure grows over Palestinian state recognition. And Dr. Richard Johnson from Queen Mary University of London will provide expert analysis and insight into Donald Trump's nuclear submarine remarks and the escalating rhetoric with Russia. Joining me now is Mark Francois, MP, the Shadow Defence Minister. Mark, thanks so much for being with us this morning. I just want to start off with what's been happening with regard to the United States President and the former President of Russia, a war of words and the deployment of 2 nuclear submarines. Should we be worried?
Well, Medvedev is sort of Vladimir Putin's social media attack dog, if you like. And he's made a number of inflammatory comments. And Putin himself has used, shall we say, nuclear rhetoric multiple times since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, none of which has led to anything. But nonetheless, I think the president is right. He's refused, if you like, to be cyberbullied. And so he's instructed 2 American submarines. We don't know if they're attack submarines or ballistic missile submarines, and we don't know where he's moved them from and to. But he's sending a signal, I think, to Putin that he's not going to be intimidated on behalf of the West, and I think he's right. It's very important, Tom, to remember who we're dealing with here. Vladimir Putin is a former KGB colonel. He's not mad, but he's utterly ruthless. This man's not a Boy Scout. This is a man who's deliberately given orders, you know, to send cruise missiles to target children's hospitals. So that's what we're dealing with. But I hope Trump is now beginning to see Putin for what he is. The 2 men seem to have some sort of previous relationship, but Trump now, in some of his most recent comments, has said things like, I had a good conversation with President Putin yesterday, and then overnight he attacked a hospital. Why did he do that? Yeah. So I hope Trump
Mark,
is
some
beginning
people
to
will
see
be
what he is.
concerned, given that Donald Trump sort of stood to be president on the platform of peace. He was going to be the great peacemaker, friends with everyone. And there's a significant proportion of his base that was really hoping that there wouldn't be escalatory rhetoric. And now, given the tensions around the world, given all it takes is one powerful man with a finger on a red button somewhere, are we heading for somewhere dangerous?
Well, I think the escalatory rhetoric has come from Russia. They are the ones that invaded the peaceful nation of Ukraine. So I think it's quite right to stand up to them. The Ukrainians are, in effect, fighting for our freedom too now. That's what it boils down to. That's why in the Conservative Party, if I may, we absolutely back the Ukrainians to the hilt. And if Trump now imposes further sanctions, which I hope he will, that's the best way of getting the message across. Right. At the risk of generalising for a nation of 140 million people, Russians admire strength and despise weakness. If you want
Mark,
to
we're short on time, so we must get from one invasion to what some describe as another. What do you make of the government's most recent announcement to crack down on people smugglers, given, of course, illegal migration is now 50% higher than it was last year?
Yes, and as you said earlier, Tom, you know, we've now hit 25,000 and we're only in early August. Look, I watched Alex Ballinger's interview. The fascinating thing was what he didn't say. And he didn't mention that the government have announced this weekend they're going to try and massively speed up the process of asylum claims. The problem with that is it will act as a gigantic pull factor. At the moment, about half of all asylum claims are granted. So if you let the word get round, you know, all those camps in northern France, the British government are going to process asylum claims, quotes, within weeks, more and more people will attempt the journey if they think they've got a 50% chance of getting asylum if they can get across the Channel, the busiest shipping lane in the world. So this is not thought through. They said they would smash the gangs. They palpably haven't. That this ridiculous scheme of 17 in, 1 out that was announced a few weeks ago is a total gimmick. Labour have no plan whatsoever to stop the boats, and that's a tragedy because the boats will keep coming. We'll need more asylum hotels, and there'll be more and more social unrest as a result. So this is all tinkering. The truth is they haven't got a clue what they're doing, and the boats will keep coming and people will get angrier and angrier about it.
And Mark, clearly people are angry. We've seen that in protests around the country. But they're angry because they've continually voted for politicians who've continually said that they will fix this issue. Politicians on both sides of the House of Commons. We were expecting the last government to fix this. Rishi Sunak made it one of his top 5 priorities to fix it, and the problem kept getting worse. Yes, one year it went down, the numbers were cut by a third, but the next year they were back up again. And this year, under a new government, they're even higher still. So how on earth are we to trust any of the politicians on this?
Tom, I understand your point. If you remember, we had the Rwanda plan. Now, some people liked it and some people didn't, but it's one more plan than Labour have got. And it was beginning to work. How do we know that? Because you had a period when the government of the Republic of Ireland were beginning to complain bitterly about the number of cross-channel migrants that were coming from Northern Ireland into the Republic because they were frightened of being sent to Rwanda. So
how does that work when the numbers coming across the Channel were rising by the time of the general election again? Yes, for a time, those numbers went down. But we had a surge in migrant crossings in 2024. So how does that square with the Rwanda programme working before it was even implemented?
Well, because, as it were, it was always meant to be a deterrent. And my point was, in fact, I think I remember you reporting on it at the time, you know, you can prove that deterrent effect was beginning to work. Should we have done it quicker? Yes. You know, should we have made further progress on it? Yes. And then there was an election and we ran out of time. And Labour junked it, I think, in a fit of pique, but without any replacement idea at all. That they had this nascent thing with Albania, where Starmer was humiliated by the Albanian Prime Minister in a press conference when he said they got a deal, and the Albanian Prime Minister contradicted him live on air. So my point is, We had a plan. It was beginning to work. Labour have no plan at all, and saying they're going to speed up the processing of asylum claims will actually make it worse because it will encourage more migrants to chance their arm and come. I mean, that's a very simple sort of, way to work it out. If you say we'll speed up your claim, if you try and get to Britain and claim asylum, more people will come. And remember,
and yet, Mark, it used to be the case that asylum claims were heard within a week or two. And if they were heard within a week or two, someone would only stay in temporary accommodation for a week or two. If they were rejected, then they'd be kicked out of the country. If they were accepted, well, then they could go off and find work and earn for themselves. But because we have these 2-year waits in some cases for people to hear their asylum claim, isn't that a bad thing that these people are stuck, prevented from working and earning, but also at taxpayers' expense, in a air-conditioned hotel over the summer months, not having to worry about their heating bill in the winter months, all on the taxpayer? I mean, isn't it a worse situation that these people are languishing for years in some cases before their case is heard?
Well, as you know, Tom, some of those people remain in those hotels and some of them abscond. They are not locked up in those hotels. They're not secure in that sense. Some of them just disappear.
Some of them enjoy the taxpayer-funded hospitality.
Yeah, Tom, we need to do something about this. We must do something about it. One thing the previous government did do, and I'm not saying our record on this is perfect, but one thing the previous government did do, which I think was important, was we changed the law so that any migrant crossing the Channel could not achieve asylum. So, to say, don't bother because you won't get it. Labour have since overturned that on, quotes, human rights grounds.
Yeah.
So they are actually, by their actions, facilitating more people coming. And the inevitable consequence of that, the knock-on down the line, is you will get more of these hotels and more social unrest.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Storm Floris is on the way with an amber weather warning in force across parts of Scotland, where we're going to see unseasonably strong winds and some heavy rain. It's currently situated out towards the west of the UK, but it undergoes rapid deepening as it approaches the UK through Sunday night and into the early hours of Monday. Sunday evening generally starts dry with clear spells for most of us. However, all eyes up towards the northwest. We see outbreaks of heavy rain arriving across parts of Northern Ireland and then later into western parts of Scotland into the early hours of Monday morning. A little dry further south, but still rather cloudy and quite a mild night and perhaps quite a humid start to Monday for many of us into the start of the new week. A very damp and windy start across parts of Scotland, though. Those winds continue to intensify through the early hours of the morning. Gusts at the coast of 70 miles an hour, 50 to 60 miles an hour on land, and even across western parts of Scotland. At first, we could see those gusts even a little higher, around 80, perhaps even 90 miles an hour. Still windy across the south, but a bit of a brighter start here, and those winds not quite as strong as further north. But that band of rain continues to sweep its way south and eastwards as we go through Monday daytime. As I mentioned, it's across the north that we see those winds continue to intensify through Monday afternoon. Western coast of Scotland and then later across the north coast of Aberdeenshire is where we're likely to see the peak of winds, 80 to 85, potentially 90 miles an hour. And with those strong winds, despite temperatures being pretty similar to Sunday, it'll be feeling much cooler and much fresher and probably quite unpleasant further north. Tuesday, those winds are a notch down compared to Monday, but it will still be a breezy start to the day, particularly across the north and the west. Plenty of blustery showers feeding in on that northwesterly wind, but generally staying drier further south with plenty of sunshine. And it looks a little drier for all of us on Wednesday. And then perhaps turning a little bit warmer as we go through the second half of the week.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning to you. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, this week with me, Tom Harwood. Now, joining me now is Sharren Haskell, the Deputy Foreign Minister of Israel. Sharren, thanks so much for being with us this morning. Firstly, I want to ask what the Israeli response is to the growing coalition of G7 countries that are saying that a state of Israel should be, a state of Palestine, I apologise, should be recognised if Israel doesn't commit to various commitments?
Well, I think that, Hamas's celebrations are quite defining, our reaction and what the world's reaction should be. Hamas is actually literally thanking the UK government for recognizing a Palestinian state. There's a huge problem when a proscribed terrorist organization is thanking your own government. Just yesterday, we saw an interview of the leader of Hamas, Ramzi, that says very clearly that those recognitions were the fruit of the 7th of October. And I want to ask you, how comfortable do you feel with your government rewarding a terrorist organization for the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust with a state?
It is a pertinent question. Of course, it has been British foreign policy for quite some time to support a two-state solution. But of course, up until now, the way in which that would be supported was that a Palestinian state wouldn't be recognised until the latter stages of negotiations. I suppose the position from the British government at the moment is that a two-state solution seems further away than ever. And even Israel, the sort of leadership of Israel, seems to now not be talking about supporting a two-state solution. What is the position of Israel when it comes to whether or not there should be two states?
Do you think that we can agree to a state where a terrorist organization who created the worst crimes against humanity, against our people, raping little girls, burning alive our grandparents, beheading and executing our family members, can we give this terrorist organization a state? I mean, that shouldn't even be a question. It's ridiculous. And when the European countries or those countries, throughout the year have stated they will declare a Palestinian state on certain conditions, whether it's elections or being liberated of terrorist organization, maybe even just releasing the hostages who are being starved, abused physically, emotionally in Gaza, maybe even that. But no, all of these demands that you could hear throughout the years have gone out the window. They sold out their values and any kind of principle and are just handing that out now to them as a gift. And as a gift of what? Of one of the worst terrorist acts they committed? What do you think that will teach other terrorist organizations, whether it's in the Middle East, Africa, or Europe, on how European governments react to terrorist actions and how they are being rewarded for it?
It's a very strong point. The moral hazard of this is clear for all to see. Is this going to encourage more terrorism? A really pertinent question. What the government has said here is that they would not accept a Palestinian state that had Hamas, that had anything to do with it, that they wouldn't want Hamas being in any form of authority in that state. Do you believe that's possible? And how could that be achieved?
Look, I want to point out maybe something a little bit outside of Israel that the mainstream media didn't even talk about, where the worst
mass humanitarian disaster are right now happening in Sudan, in South Sudan, where children are literally being left on the side of the road because of starvation, where millions of people were displaced, many killed, more than the entire population of the Palestinian people were executed, murdered because of this conflict in South Sudan and Sudan. And still many governments refuse to have relationships or are boycotting the South Sudanese government because they want them to have elections. So, on a contrast to the hypocrisy of the world in regards to Israel, they're not even saying that they're going to hand out or declare a Palestinian state if there will be elections. And what do you think? You know why they're not asking for elections in a Palestinian Authority? In regards to whatever they request from other nations and from other countries, it is because your government and Keir Starmer do know that if there's elections tomorrow in the Palestinian Authority, it is Hamas that will rise into power. So you tell me, how do we avoid a declaration of a state without a terrorist organization heading that state? Now, your government know that. I'm sorry,
that is a desperate situation. I want to follow you down that path of logic. Given your belief and perhaps the reality that Hamas is more popular than we would like it to be, that Hamas, the ghastly terrorist organisation that in its charter until recently wanted to wipe every Jew from the face of the earth, if it is true that Hamas would win elections both in Gaza and in the West Bank across what multiple countries now want to recognise as Palestine, how can Israel go about its foreign policy with any sort of... I'm trying to follow your logic here. Is your logic that there is no Palestinian state that can ever exist because Hamas or something like it will always be elected in these territories? Is that what you're saying?
So I'm saying two things. The one thing is that the idea or the experiment of the Palestinian state happened. We disengaged in 2005, giving Gaza to the Palestinians to have their own autonomy, their own independence. They couldn't run and manage their own life. But instead of building a Singapore or a Hong Kong, they elected democratically a terrorist organization that have been radicalizing the people for the last 20 years, using all the resource, all the humanitarian aid, all the money that's been invested there into terrorism, building underground...
Palestinian activists say that Hamas never won a majority.
Well, I would look on the facts and on the elections that happened in Gaza, and they did. If I look on the reality,
not a majority.
On the reality, on the elections, on pollings that are happening by the Palestinians, the Americans, the Israelis, you look on all the intelligence information, the facts, the science, not the emotion, but the facts, and it will be given to you.
So then what is Israel trying to achieve then? It's
very simple.
If the Palestinian people will always elect a Hamas, but you're trying to wipe Hamas from the face of the earth, what does victory look like in Gaza?
So,
when will this ghastly war end?
Well, it's very simple. When Hamas disarms itself and when the hostages are back home, that's when this conflict ends. It could have ended yesterday, it could have ended a year ago, and it could have never started as we place that, as a statement to the Palestinians from the beginning of the war, that there won't be a single soldier in Gaza if they hand out our hostages and if Hamas disarm. But they refused. And so what we need to do is very simple. We need, first of all, to bring our hostages back home and to make sure that Hamas doesn't hold any military power or civilian power in the area. Look, it's very similar to the fight against ISIS. Does ISIS in radical pockets still exist? Yeah, but the civilian power it had was taken away from him. The military organized power they have was destroyed. And so you put them as small as possible to take them away from power, because if they maintain power, they will continue to radicalize the next generation of Palestinians again. How is it so easy for Hamas to recruit people from the Palestinian population? Because it educated them to hatred, to violence, and to martyrdom.
And just very briefly, I take it that Israel won't be following the British demands for a ceasefire and for unlimited aid trucks into Gaza in order to stop Britain's recognition of Palestine. That's what the Prime Minister has said, that if Israel commits to that ceasefire in those conditions, this recognition will not happen at the UN General Assembly in September.
So, look, the first thing I want to say is that obviously your government is more worried about losing votes to Jeremy Corbyn and Muslim independence than they are in supporting a key ally in the Middle East and the only democracy in the region. In regards to the humanitarian aid, look, there are right now, last week, a month ago, hundreds of loads of trucks just waiting inside Gaza for the international community to distribute that. Unfortunately, the United Nations decided to turn the humanitarian issue into a political issue and not a humanitarian issue. And so when they are collaborating with Hamas, trying to demand that Hamas will be the sole and only distributor of humanitarian aid, it's absolutely unacceptable. If they want, they can send thousands of trucks now inside Gaza to take it and distribute that. We've published the images, we've published video of those goods that are already there, and we've assisted through airdrops where Israel, the Jordanians, the Germans have been dropping aid from the air because the United Nations is failing their own mission.
So as things stand, it looks like the United Kingdom will be recognising a Palestinian state in September. Big goings on there at the United Nations. For now, Sharon Haskell, thank you very much for joining us, Deputy Foreign Minister of Israel. I really appreciate your time.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. The heat is building across Portugal and Spain over the next few days. It's not as hot as it has been across the Eastern Med, and here it's a bit more changeable. We have got some fairly intense thundery downpours across parts of Italy and the Balkans, northern parts of Greece too. Elsewhere across Italy, Spain and Portugal, plenty of hot sunshine though, just a bit more in the way of cloud affecting Madeira and the Canary Islands, but generally dry and fine here. Lots of hot sunshine on the way through the next few days too, and temperatures in the 30s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. This is the Camilla Tominey Show. Now, joining me is Dr. Richard Johnson, the Professor of US Politics at Queen Mary University of London. Richard, thanks so much for being with us this morning. Donald Trump is making quite a habit of coming to the United Kingdom. He opened a new golf course up in Scotland just a few days ago, but he's going to be back in September. What is the politics behind this yo-yoing of a couple of visits?
Well, of course, Donald Trump has a very long history of visits to the United Kingdom, going way back before he became President of the United States, because he is the son of a British citizen. He is half Scottish. He is the first US president to have a British-born parent since Woodrow Wilson, whose mother was from Carlisle. And Trump has had long-standing business engagements here. I mean, it's a curious but very typical aspect of the Trump presidency that he is combining what was meant to be, or was initially billed as a personal holiday to one of his golf courses to cut a ribbon, as a major aspect of American statecraft, both vis-a-vis the UK government and the EU, getting both the President of the European Commission and the British Prime Minister to go to his hotel to meet with him on British soil to finalise these trade agreements.
Yeah, I mean, what a moment of theatre that was in his magnificent ballroom that he had himself built up there in Turnberry. First to have Ursula von der Leyen come to visit him, almost in his sort of palatial surroundings, to sign a trade deal that means 0 tariffs on American goods going to Europe, but 15% tariffs on European goods going to America. I mean, he really is showing the Europeans that he is a hard negotiator. I wonder if the British lulled the Europeans into a false sense of security with Brexit negotiations, and now they've actually met a hard baller. They don't know what hit them.
I think those are really good points, Tom. I mean, first is that this negotiation was classic Trump. Trump goes in really, really tough. He sets what seem to be almost kind of totally unreasonable demands, and then reaches a less unreasonable final point. Yeah, I was thinking during this week about an interview that his late first wife, Ivana Trump, gave, where she talked about her divorce with Donald Trump. And she said the months where they were going through the divorce were really, really awful, horrible. You know, he just went as hard as he could in the divorce. She said, then once we signed the agreement, he was brilliant to me, and we became best of friends, and we spoke on the phone every week for the rest of what turned out to be her life. And, you can sort of see that this is, how he used to do business deals, divorce settlements, is how he also conducts international trade. And on your second point about the about the Brexit negotiations, I mean, absolutely. I was thinking the same thing, that when we went into our negotiations with the EU, we took some of our biggest bargaining chips off the table at the start. You know, we said we were not going to talk about EU citizens, we were not going to talk about defence, we were not going to talk about the Irish border, we were going to concede all of those to the EU position at the very start. And that's absolutely opposite of what Donald Trump would do in that kind of negotiation.
Absolutely, I remember those years well. The sequencing that we agreed to, we weren't going to possibly talk terms of trade until we'd agreed all of the backstop stuff that the European Union wanted to lock Britain into. They've met a very, very different negotiation partner. But there is a question mark here in terms of Britain in September. We've just been speaking to a representative of the Israeli government, and we know that Donald Trump has, by surprise, imposed extra tariffs on Canada, far higher than they were expecting in the last couple of days. This follows Canada saying it will recognise a Palestinian state at the United Nations at the same time that Britain has committed to doing so. We know that Donald Trump is very happy with tearing up deals that he himself has signed. He tore up the USMCA agreement between the US, Mexico and Canada that he signed in his first term. Could we see a risk here with Britain in recognising a Palestinian state in September that incites the ire of Donald Trump and imposes further extra tariffs on the United Kingdom?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, to the credit of the UK government, they've recognised that Trump does have this certain affection for the UK. He also, Trump wants to show, for political reasons and ideological reasons, that Brexit works. So, you know, he has established a differential in terms of the UK-US trade relationship and the EU-US trade relationship. And the UK government has gone along with that, hasn't pushed against that, and has adopted effectively a kind of a flattery strategy when it comes to Trump. And this second state visit of his two-term presidency is part of that. But you know, the truth about Donald Trump is that you know, he is inconstant in his affections, and he can change his viewpoint and his attitude towards you quite quickly. And there is, I think, a risk that if the UK government pushes too much against Trump on some of these issues, that he may stop showing such kind of preferential treatment to the UK. At the moment, we haven't seen the signs of that, and his focus is trying to get a better deal with Canada, basically, which is what he's doing here. But, you know, further down the road, perhaps we could see some friction.
Now, just finally, we have seen the president deploy 2 nuclear submarines, or at least he says he has, off the back of a row with the former Russian President Medvedev. Obviously, Donald Trump got elected on a platform of peace, on a platform of pacifism, perhaps the most pacifist US president in living memory. And yet now we see him sort of turning about on this issue of Russia. Should we be concerned?
Well, actually, I think some of this is tied in a certain way to the trade negotiations that went on over the last few weeks, because ultimately, you know, the EU didn't push back. I mean, the lesson of this from Trump was basically he talked tough, and no one really pushed back against him. The exception is perhaps China. And of course, China is not an ally of the United States, but Trump's allies didn't push back, and the Europeans didn't push back. And one of the reasons why the Europeans didn't push back was not just about the economic consequences of high tariffs to the United States, but because the United States still has this ultimate trump card that Europe is still very dependent on the US security umbrella. And I think part of what Trump is doing, okay, maybe the Medvedev spat was the casus belli for this in a way, but actually I think this is Trump showing to the Europeans that actually you still depend on us, you still need us for your security, and unless and until Europe is prepared to take charge of their own defense, then the United States will use this, at least under Trump, as a bargaining tool for economic leverage as well.
Interesting stuff. Well, Dr. Richard Johnson, thanks indeed for joining us, Professor of US Politics at Queen Mary University of London. A big thank you to all my guests today, and thank you at home for watching as well. We'll be back next week, but now it's the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Storm Floris is on the way with an amber weather warning in force across parts of Scotland, where we're going to see unseasonably strong winds and some heavy rain. It's currently situated out towards the west of the UK, but it undergoes rapid deepening as it approaches the UK through Sunday night and into the early hours of Monday. Sunday evening generally starts dry with clear spells for most of us, however all eyes up towards the northwest. We see outbreaks of heavy rain arriving across parts of Northern Ireland and then later into western parts of Scotland into the early hours of Monday morning. A little dry further south, but still rather cloudy and quite a mild night and perhaps quite a humid start to Monday for many of us into the start of the new week. A very damp and windy start across parts of Scotland, though. Those winds continue to intensify through the early hours of the morning. Gusts at the coast of 70 miles an hour, 50 to 60 miles an hour on land, and even across western parts of Scotland. At first, we could see those gusts even a little higher, around 80, perhaps even 90 miles an hour. Still windy across the south, but a bit of a brighter start here, and those winds not quite as strong as further north. But that band of rain continues to sweep its way south and eastwards as we go through Monday daytime. As I mentioned, it's across the north that we see those winds continue to intensify through Monday afternoon. Western coast of Scotland and then later across the north coast of Aberdeenshire is where we're likely to see the peak of winds, 80 to 85, potentially 90 miles an hour. And with those strong winds, despite temperatures being pretty similar to Sunday, it'll be feeling much cooler and much fresher and probably quite unpleasant further north. Tuesday, those winds are a notch down compared to Monday, but it will still be a breezy start to the day, particularly across the north and the west. Plenty of blustery showers feeding in on that northwesterly wind, but generally staying drier further south with plenty of sunshine. And it looks a little drier for all of us on Wednesday. And then perhaps turning a little bit warmer as we go through the second half of the week.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year. We'll give you a cash lump sum that will cover 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an incredible £20,000. Plus, we'll add £5,000 on top of that for you to treat yourself. You have to hurry though, as lines will close on the 29th of August. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a